Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to do my review of AEW's Dynamite. Starting off the evening, we have Daniel Garcia. Garcia comes out to the ring quickly, grabs a microphone. He calls out MJF. MJF ends up showing up. He's pretty much seated in the crowd. MJF then talks about All Out. He also mocks Garcia. Garcia then mocks MJF. Garcia says that MJF doesn't care about anybody or even care about AEW. Garcia says that he wants to ruin MJF's life. MJF says that he's going to put Garcia in a wheelchair. Garcia then goes after MJF through the crowd, but MJF hits Garcia with a glass. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It is Okada versus Kyle Fletcher for the Continental title. I thought it was a good match. A back-and-forth matchup between Okada and Fletcher, with Fletcher keeping the pace of the match. Okada then hits an elbow drop off the top rope on Fletcher. Okada then hits a DDT on the outside on Fletcher. It looked absolutely brutal. Fletcher then somehow gets up, hits a brainbuster on Okada off the apron. Fletcher then hits a senton over the barricade, taking out Okada. Fletcher then hits an elbow drop of his own off the top rope on Okada. Fletcher then hits a tombstone for a near fall. But Okada gets up, hits a low blow with the referee being distracted into a Rainmaker, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still Continental Champion is Okada. Hats off to Okada for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Jamie Hayter versus Robin Renegade. I thought it was an okay matchup, back and forth matchup between Hayter and Renegade, with Hayter keeping the pace of the match. But Hayter ultimately hits the finish, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jamie Hayter. Hats off to Jamie Hayter for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Jon Moxley segment. Jon Moxley comes out to the ring with Marina Shafir. Moxley grabs a microphone. He talks about Darby Allin. He talks about a past that he had with Darby Allin, a matchup that he had with Darby years ago. And he had a lot of praise for Darby Allin. And Moxley then tells the fans and everybody at home that Moxley just wants to sit down and talk to Darby Allin. It looks like Moxley is trying to recruit Darby Allin to possibly join Moxley's new faction. Moving on from that, we have an AEW women's title matchup. It is Nyla Rose versus Mariah May. I thought it was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Rose and May, with Rose keeping the pace of the match. Rose and May then both exchange in the middle of the ring, but May hits a Storm Zero on Rose in the middle of the ring, pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match and still AEW Women's Champion is Mariah May. Hats off to Mariah May for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Mercedes Moné segment. Mercedes comes out to the ring with Camille. Moné then talks about defending the New Japan Pro Wrestling Women's Strong Championship. Moné says that she is the face of AEW. Shida then is shown on the Titantron. Shida says that Moné can't beat the ace. Christopher Daniels then gets involved and says that Camille will be banned from ringside in the matchup between Shida and Moné at All Out. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of Dynamite. Is O'Reilly teaming up with Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay versus Yuta, Claudio, and Pac. I thought it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with O'Reilly, Cassidy, and Ospreay keeping the pace of the match. Orange then hits a breach break for a near fall. Claudio then hits a giant swing, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Yuta, Claudio, and Pac. After the match, Bryan Danielson comes down to the ring to celebrate with the Blackpool Combat Club, but they are quickly attacked by the Elite. Moving on from that, we have an Adam Page and Swerve Strickland contract signing for this weekend's All-Out match. Swerve comes out to the ring with Prince Nana. He is joined by Tony Schiavone. Looks like Swerve was going to sign the contract. Page music hits. Page never shows up, but Page is shown on the Titantron at Swerve's childhood home. Now, in the beginning of the show, or a part of the show last night, Swerve was standing outside his childhood home with Prince Nana, and he was talking about his, Swerve's childhood and the home that he grew up in. He told everybody that the house got foreclosed on and they lost the house. And then Swerve says with the contract signing that he just signed, the extension, if you will, he was able to purchase back his childhood home. But Page ends up showing up at Swerve's childhood home. He walks through the house with a tank of gas, if you will. And he's pouring the gas all over Swerve's childhood home. Swerve's going absolutely crazy in the ring. And then Page goes outside. He sits in a chair. Then he strikes a match. And then he throws the match on the ground and he burns the house down, which I thought was absolutely insane. A couple of things that I want to quickly talk about with Dynamite, man, before I get out of here. Do I think Dynamite's show last night was a great show? No. I would say besides MJF and Garcia and Swerve and Page, those two segments were probably the best thing that came out of Dynamite last night. Let's start with Garcia and MJF. Obviously, there is a storyline there between Garcia and MJF. You know, MJF took out Garcia a couple weeks ago. Garcia was taken out on a stretcher with, I believe it was like a tombstone pile driver off the top rope, which Garcia ended up landing on his neck, which took out Garcia for a couple weeks. Obviously, there's a storyline there. I'm not against this matchup between Garcia and MJF. I think it's going to be a really good match. I don't think it's going to be the best match at All Out, but I do think it's going to be one of the top matches that All Out has to present this weekend. I'm all for the match, and hopefully Garcia does get the win over MJF. The other thing is obviously Swerve and Adam Page. These two guys right here is probably the best rivalry that AEW has ever put together. Swerve and Page have done a fantastic job with this rivalry, man. It's absolutely great. I mean, it's literally eye for an eye. You know, you see Swerve, going into Page's home and mocking Adam Page, and then here we are all this time later. Swerve buys his childhood home, and then you see Adam Page walking through Swerve's childhood home, and then he strikes a match and burns the place to the ground. It's kind of an eye for an eye. So, I mean, to me, this is something where this is Adam Page's final stop and coming to an end on Page's revenge tour against Swerve Strickland, which I'm all for this. I think this match at All Out is going to be great. It's going to be a unsanctioned, lights-out, steel cage match this weekend at All Out. It's going to be a fantastic match, and these two guys are going to tear the house down this weekend at All Out. I'm all for it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And it's going to be a fantastic match. But besides those two segments, Dynamite was not that good. The go-home shows for pay-per-views from AEW are not that great. They're just not. Tony Khan is Mr. Pay-per-view. I will give him that. The go-home shows, though, are awful. They are abysmal, man. They're just not good. And even the matches that were booked last night, they meant absolutely nothing. I know we saw Okada versus Fletcher for the Continental title. Okay, it was a decent match. Not a bad match, but the rest of the matches that were on the card meant absolutely nothing. It didn't mean anything. It wasn't leading into a match leading up to All Out. It meant nothing. So, to me, I feel like Tony Khan just threw something against the wall, hoping something would stick, and it would please the fans. I don't think that really happened last night. Dynamite last night was not that good, except for the two segments. The other thing, too, obviously, is Jon Moxley. And I think that's the biggest question mark as well, like with this Dynamite last night. Out of those two segments would be Jon Moxley. And that's the biggest question mark. What is Jon Moxley doing? Are we getting a new faction? Is he going to add more people? I know that he wants to sit down and talk to Darby Allin. Is he trying to recruit Darby Allin to come over to this new faction and join Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir? Because right now, the only person that's joining Jon Moxley right now, to me, it seems like, is Marina Shafir. We have nobody else about, joining this faction. We have no idea. And I also mentioned last week that this will be a great way to bring in Shane McMahon. Now, I'm not saying that will or won't happen. This could be something where they're building towards that, only because of what Moxley had told Shivani last week. Moxley told Shivani verbatim that this is no longer their company. This will be a great angle to bring in someone like Shane McMahon to go head-to-head with Tony Khan. It tells a hell of a story. But as of right now, we don't know the plans of what Jon Moxley's going to do with this new faction, nor what he meant by what he said to Tony Schiavone about this is no longer their company. We have no other details about that. But if I had to predict it, it would be something where they do bring Shane McMahon in. And this would be the best way to do that. It would be Shane and this new faction trying to dethrone, if you will, Tony Khan and AEW and everything that Tony Khan has created with AEW. And Shane is trying to do everything he can to tear that down and take that away from Tony Khan. That's how I would do that. That'd be one hell of a storyline. And you can have that story going on for months, if not a year, until the final showdown or whatever the hell is going to come out of that storyline. But that's what I would do. Absolutely. The other thing, too, is Ricky Starks. I know Ricky Starks was a hot topic a couple weeks ago. Ricky Starks was recently, I believe, on Twitter saying that he was not given any kind of creative decisions or any kind of creative to bring him back into the fold with AEW. Now, I don't know who's who's lying or who's not or who's full of shit, but it's either Tony Khan or Ricky Starks. To me, I still believe Ricky Starks is on his way out. I think Ricky, mindset-wise, he is done with AEW. Ricky wants to go over to WWE, whether it's NXT or the main roster. Ricky wants to go over to WWE. I think Wardlow is the same thing. I mentioned this multiple times now for the past few months that Ricky Starks and Wardlow were on the fast track to go over to WWE. It's going to happen. It's the same thing with Penta and Ray Phoenix. They're just trying to tie up loose ends, and they're probably going over to WWE. You know, and that's why I try to tell people, man, the AEW that we first got in the first 3 years is not what we're going to get now. You know, their whole mission statement with the Young Bucks is that they had the best tag team division in the world. And then at one time, they did. Tag team wrestling was its best in the first 3 years of AEW's existence around the world. I mean, it was great. But we're not getting that now. The tag team division in AEW is abysmal at this point. You got the Bucks, you got the Acclaimed, you have FTR, and those are your top 3 tag teams. And then you have trios. You have the Bullet Club. You have, hell, even the Acclaimed are technically trios with, Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, and Billy Gunn. But technically they're a tag team, if you will, because Billy Gunn doesn't wrestle that much. But there's not many tag teams in the fold anymore to even go after the AEW Tag Team Championships. I mean, you have Claudio and Yuta saying last night that they want to go up against the Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Champions, where at the time the Bucks really weren't doing shit with those tag team belts. You know what I mean? Like, they need to, if we're not going to get what we got in the first 3 years of AEW's existence, they have to get better with the tag team division and the vision. Like, nobody knows where this company's going. Nobody has any idea. We don't even know if AEW is even going to give a TV rights deal at this point. Nobody knows. And I'm not really understanding or comprehending the holdup on why we don't know what the hell's going on with the AEW TV rights deal. We have no idea what the hell's going on. Are they staying with Time Warner and Warner Media? Is HBO Max going to be a part of this deal? We have no clue on what the hell's going on. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think even hypothetically, if they sign a deal with Time Warner and Warner Media, I still believe that Tony Khan will be in the hot seat for that new deal. Because the ratings are in the toilet. And I mentioned this multiple times now for the past few weeks. Now, I'm not a big ratings guy. But what I will say is that for the executives at Time Warner, does it matter? Hell yeah, it matters. Absolutely it matters. Because at the end of the day, they're going to look at those numbers and see whether he can stack up or not. Or whether these shows can stack up week to week to week. Because right now, Collision's ratings are in the toilet as well as Rampage. Collision is an afterthought at this point. And Dynamite's barely hanging on. They do a 600, maybe 680,000, which is not terrible. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's been a while since they hit that 1 million ratings for AEW. It's been a while where the main roster for WWE have been hitting it out of the park. They've been selling out arenas all over the country, all over the world. Bash at Berlin, they had those events in France, events in Puerto Rico, and I mentioned that a couple, I think earlier in the week when I did my Raw review. I mean, they're leagues above right now what AEW is doing. Not trying to compare apples to oranges, but it's the truth. It's night and day when it pertains to WWE and AEW. WWE is a global brand. AEW is not. They go out to Wembley, and that's it. Now, next year, yeah, they're going to venture out. They're going to go to Australia. They're going to have All in Texas next year, which is at the Ranger Stadium, which is going to be awesome. It's probably going to be sold out. That's great. But AEW is not a global brand. They're just not. They're not putting PLEs together overseas. The only one they do currently right now is Wembley for All In. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, they're not a global brand yet. They're still building. And as far as the talent being frustrated with not being showcased on television, that's Tony Khan's deal. Tony Khan needs to split the rosters. You get half the roster on Dynamite and half the roster on Collision. That way the fans know what they're getting on Collision and the fans know what they're getting on Dynamite. It just makes the most sense where you can split the rosters and other people can get TV time. I know Big Show said that he wants to get back into the ring. I don't think Big Show needs to get back into the ring. I think Big Show's in-ring career is done. You also have Powerhouse Hobbs, who's been on the shelf for quite a while. Miro. No one knows what the hell's going on with Miro. Is he injured? Is he on the shelf? We have no idea. How are you going to bring these guys back into the fold and put them in a predominant storyline? Nobody knows. And, for people like Miro, I feel bad for Miro, man. He comes in, I feel like he comes in for a little bit, he's here for a cup of coffee, and then he's off the scene for the next, 6 to 7 months or almost a year. You know what I mean? Miro should be TNT champion. Miro should be in the conversation as world champion. But we're not getting that. And Powerhouse Hobbs, he was on a hell of a storyline, and then he gets injured, and then that's it. And we haven't seen him in months. Months. It's been a while since we've seen Hobbs. So that's the thing. If Tony Khan is, a head of creative and has to put these people back in the storyline, well, let's get that ball rolling. Ricky Starks should not be sitting at home. Ricky Starks should be on Collision or should be on Dynamite. Or hell, make him the face of Collision. That's what I would do. Absolutely. There's no reason why Ricky Starks needs to be sitting on the shelf doing absolutely nothing. The guy's a star, man. Put him in the ring. Let him cut a promo. Do something. Rather than having him sit at home. Look at Rey Fenix and Penta. Same thing. Do I think they're on their way out to WWE? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would not be surprised if we don't hear the next few months leading up towards the end of the year that Penta and Rey are leaving to go over to WWE. And that story doesn't intensify here towards the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised. There's nothing else more for these guys to do, to be honest with you. The tag team division is abysmal, man. There's no division. So what the hell are they supposed to do? I mean, my thing is, even with Rey Fenix being injury prone, and he gets a lot of injuries, he's out for a while. You look at someone like Penta. Penta can have a singles run and do a hell of a job. And he's had a singles run. Maybe not with a world championship or a TNT title, but he's had a singles run and he's done a hell of a job. But as a tag team, as a unit, Penta and Phoenix are unstoppable, man. They're one of the best tag teams in the world. But we're not seeing that showcased that much on AEW television as of late. And it's the truth. House of Black. Malachi Black. Malachi Black should have been TNT champion or world champion by now. The House of Black are taking a back seat. And honestly, for what it's worth, Julia Hart was doing better than what House of Black was doing as a whole. And she's out with injury. They were pushing Julia way more than the entire House of Black. Because they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to book them. And that's the problem. That's AEW's ultimate issue. They don't know how to book the talent, man. And if they don't know how to book the talent are sitting on the shelf or sitting at home. But like I said, man, all in all, Dynamite last night, the highlight of Dynamite last night was it came down to two segments. MJF Garcia, Swerve, and Adam Page. What Adam Page did last night by sending that message, by burning that house down, was an eye for an eye. This is coming to an end. This is the end of Adam Page's revenge tour against Swerve Strickland. And I think this unsanctioned, lights out, steel cage match at All Out is going to be incredible. These guys are going to tear the house down this weekend at All Out. And Page is there to send a message to Swerve. Page wants to destroy Swerve Strickland and take him off the scene for professional wrestling. This is great. This storyline here between Page and Swerve is the best thing going right now, besides the Jon Moxley stuff in AEW. Hands down. Hands down. And this is all going to come to fruition at All In, where these two gentlemen are going to beat the hell out of one another in that steel cage match this weekend. Unsanctioned, lights out, yeah. To me, if you think Full Gear was bad, this is going to be rough. This is going to be bad. These guys are going to beat the hell out of one another, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Absolutely. This is the best rivalry that AEW has ever had. And I'm waiting to see the end of the revenge tour for Adam Page. But other than that, Dynamite last night was not that great, besides these two segments, man. But again, hopefully AEW gets better with the go-home shows leading up to these pay-per-views. Especially, and it's tough, man. I mean, if you look at the narrative, you look at All In, and then usually a week later, you have All Out. So the build for All Out is going to be lacking every single time because Tony Khan wants to book another pay-per-view pretty much back-to-back with All In and All Out. There's not a lot of build from All In to All Out. You got a week to maybe 2 weeks max to build towards another pay-per-view. The pay-per-view between All In and All Out are too close together, man. They need to, Tony Khan needs to take, if you want to have a pay-per-view in September, that's fine. But let's have it towards the end of September. Or even at the end of the month, September 30th, have it then. Something. You don't need it like a week or two after All In, because All In, that needs to marinate. That needs to fester and then start building after All In leading up to the next pay-per-view. It's kind of hard to do that when you only give a week to 2 weeks max to build these storylines. Because All In is their biggest show of the year. Hands down. It's their WrestleMania for them. And then after that, we go right into All Out. And All Out just takes a back seat because there's not enough time to build storyline and build matches in a week to 2 week time span where fans are really, truly going to be invested in these matches unless you can make it significant enough where people are in tune on what the hell is going on. And that's exactly what we're getting here with Adam Page and Swerve. because we know that this storyline here has spanned for months, if not a year, between Adam Page and Swerve Strickland. So everybody's going to be like, oh, man, I really want to see this matchup. These guys are going to tear the house down. So fans are already going to be inclined and have their eyes set on this matchup. You also got Bryan Danielson and Jack Perry. This is Danielson's first title defense since he's won the AEW World Championship against Swerve Strickland at All In at Wembley Stadium. So how is Danielson going to stack up against Perry and also the Elite lingering around that night during All Out? Is Danielson going to be able to stack up against Jack Perry? And that's the biggest question. One of the main questions coming out of All Out, and obviously we have Jon Moxley. What the hell was going on with Moxley? Is there going to be a new faction? Is Shane coming into the fold? Is this going to be something where, a Outsiders 2.0, if you will, where they're trying to take down everything that Tony Khan and AEW has built over this past few years? We don't know. The only thing we do know from Jon Moxley is that he wants to have a conversation with Darby Allin, possibly to recruit Darby Allin into this new faction if he gets a chance to talk to Darby Allin. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe, be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.